In 1982, there was a case called Mobile versus Bolden. It was a case dealing with at-large election districts in which the court said that even though there is a few sparse minority representation, it was not intended to do such. And then in 1982, with the amendments of the Civil Voting Rights Act, the court says, no, impact can have as much, it can be a triggering effect, and it led to majority-minority districts. Question is this good? Should we base it upon intent of discrimination or just the effect of discrimination?
Well, the first thing I'd bring up about the benefits and disadvantages of majority-minority districts is although you might be able to create a black or minority district, it has the impact of creating other white or perhaps conservative districts around that. This is why we see in certain times states run by conservative leaders are willing to have these majority-minority seats because it might create one black seat but then 4 Republican seats.
Furthermore, having an honest and good faith effort is sometimes the only way that districts can be created, because districts are supposed to be created to be as compact and contiguous as possible. And because of geographic self-segregation, it's not always possible to make the districts as competitive or to have the correct representation as one would hope. But the honest and good faith effort is there because it's not always possible to create the districts as equitable as possible.
And I think an example of this would be Mahan v. Howell in Virginia. The honest and good faith effort was laid down by the decision in Reynolds v. Sims. And we saw, even though there was not an equal representation of all districts in Virginia, the Supreme Court ruled in Mahan v. Howell that it did have an honest and good faith effort to have equal representation in congressional districts.
Even then, we've seen in Shaw v. Reno that there's a problem with attempting to create a majority-minority district by creating extremely strange-looking districts. For instance, they created along a highway. And in that sense, it can create more problems rather than solving some.
I wonder if the two systems are really converging. I wonder more if it isn't the case in places like Israel, where voters now vote for the prime minister separately from the member, and in England, which every cycle becomes more and more like the American system, whether the parliamentary systems aren't really becoming more like our system, and we tend to prefer divided government. But if they're going our way, why do you think they think that our system might be worth copying in some way?
Well, we saw, for example, during the recent British campaign, whether it's the debates or other aspects of their contest, they're really looking to the American system because they see something they like. There was so much world focus on, say, Barack Obama's election, that it's really drawing interest into our system even more than ever before. I think also just the idea of having more of a representation is something that's very compelling to many other democracies. For example, the Conservative Party has claimed that they should re-amend the Septennial Act, meaning that if a new prime minister of the same party was to take control, he would only be given 6 months of caretaker government before there'd be a forced election. So we see trends like this throughout parliamentary systems.
And furthermore, it may just be a result of increased technology with mass media. Because the prime minister is just one person as opposed to all of the legislature, the media can focus on this one person and make it sort of a personality, as we've had with the president for quite some time with mass media. And so therefore focusing on one person may just be as a result of the technology, not necessarily because it's a better thing to do.
Also, the Conservative Party in Britain has recently proposed legislation that would create primaries for people to vote in. And they did so hoping that they would create more popular sovereignty and participation from the people and give the government a source of legitimacy that they see in our system.
Good. Do you think that the bit of partisanship in Congress today is partly a consequence of the way congressional districts are drawn? And if so, what would you do to change it?
It may be just a result of having single-member districts, because originally single-member districts, if you were to have evenly dispersed political ideologies, would actually create sort of a moderating effect where you're attempting to appeal to as wide a base of voters as possible. But with political self-segregation that's occurred in America, it actually creates sort of a radical effect in which members are worried of opposition from their own party and not from people from the center, and so they try and become sort of the best party member that they can be, and therefore fall strictly to party lines, but actually creates more partisanship and less willingness to compromise.
I would concur. One good thing you can say about Congress is they're very good with representation, but at the cost of this, we really lose effective deliberation and oversight. And I'd say gerrymandering is a factor, but there's many other influences. We've seen, for example, that the introduction of C-SPAN cameras have really influenced what members are willing to say, because interest groups and other organizations are constantly watching them.
As far as a solution for gerrymandering, I would say one good option would be California's Proposition 14, in which there would be a jungle primary where everyone could vote for the candidates in the primary. And this would have a moderating effect. So rather than fearing being primaried, candidates would move towards the center because they would have to appeal to a broad base of voters.
Also in California, we've seen with Proposition 11 as well as with the Iowa system that they're attempting to deal with redistricting by creating separate commissions that elect both screen and choose people to redistrict the communities in a less partisan manner.
What do you think the ideal size of Congress should be? I guess our initial size was one for every 30,000 people. Today, that'd probably be about 10,000 members of Congress. What do you think would be the greatest to have the best representation?
I think we're just about right the way we are. There are national legislatures that are larger than ours. I believe Mexico is quite a bit larger. And because of the modern system of technology, whether you have internet debates or internet discussions, or you have these town hall meetings that are very easy to access, I think really representatives are able to get in touch with constituencies, particularly through the development of the Tuesday to Thursday Club. I don't think you can really claim that representation is failing in the American system.